Well, parents of students with special needs are worried about what they see as excessive use of seclusion rooms in schools. A survey carried out by 3 organizations found that while parents understand why seclusion is sometimes used to calm down students, they say it is overused, and too often because the school lacks the resources to deal with situations differently. As a result, the child suffers the consequences emotionally, psychologically. Representatives of the 3 organizations were at the National Assembly yesterday to present their report and recommendations. Bianca Nugent is president of the Coalition of Parents of Children with Special Needs, and she joins me on the line. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being with us. Tell us why your coalition and the 2 other organizations got together to do this survey.
Well, actually, back in December 2022, some members of our different organization raised major concern with pictures, with multiple incidents of really not knowing, but very surprised to see that their children were put in seclusion rooms in as young as 5-year-olds. So one mother reached us particular, and another a couple of parents from other stakeholders or other associations. We decided to just bring the news, just launch it out and really call for action at the government. And unfortunately, the government turned down our request for a special commission on the matter. And then when we decided, pretty much the reason was, well, it might be, occasional case, it's not a phenomenon that is spread out. But we knew, based on the, number of calls that concerns that we received, that it was not just anecdotal.
Tell us about the 2 other organizations joining your coalition.
Certainly. So we're bringing this matter forward with the support of la Société québécoise de la déficience intellectuelle and also the Quebec Fédération of Autism.
So for people listening to us, we're talking about seclusion rooms. What are they? What do they look like generally?
Well, it varies, to be honest. Some of them are, based on protocols, meaning they have a window, they have actually a door that could be on lock. Obviously, there's professional that uses them mostly for sensorial room and whatnot. But the one that we're talking about is the one that have really, they're not up to standards. Children are just put there as a punishment. And we want it to be stopped.
And they're being used, you say, children being put there as punishment in response to behavior, for example.
Well, exactly. We're talking about, outbursts, meltdown. We're talking about, emotional or sensory dysregulation. But this something is common, when we actually, as professional, intervene with children that may have these type of conditions. So what we're asking at the coalition is that these protocols, if they may be used, first of all, they should be used in the last resort. There's so many other strategies, intervention that could be done upward in order to support and to secure that child, that is going through, as we say, a disruptive or a bad moment. The use is the abuse that we're actually not comfortable with, and the fact that it is done by professional that they don't have the actually reserved act based on their professional order or association. And this is what we want to be changed. We want trained, qualified, professional crisis intervention staff in school in numbers to make sure that all the necessary measures, as we call them, de-escalation, techniques and whatnot, could be used to prevent the use of these seclusion room in the first place.
Tell us about some of the results of how these rooms are being used. What you found out in terms of, for example, how long a child might stay in there.
Well, exactly. We conducted the survey really, really quickly, right after we received the confirmation that the government will not do in-depth investigation. So a total of 338 people took part of the survey, reflecting the importance attached to the issue. So the main concern of the parents, as we can see in the report, that most parents didn't even know that seclusion room were in the school in the first place, because some of them really look like a closet. Who would know that someone would think of putting a child in there? And then again, when the parents, a small proportion of parents that knew that the seclusion was used, first of all, was not in the IPs. Second of all, they didn't know how many times per day or per week their children were put there whenever a disruptive behavior would occurred. And third, how long they stay there. So it's a double take, because not only it infringes the security and the physical integrity, and given again the dignity and the emotional and psychosocial support that a child should have, based on their condition, but it infringes also the access, the service asset for the educational needs. While they're there, they're not learning anything. What are they learning? That every time they cry, every time there's an outburst, every time some say that they're disruptive, they're going to be secluded. This is uncalled for, and we wanted this type of protocols if or behavior stops.
Do you have a sense of the impact on students? Whether when they're out of class, they might be at home, or perhaps they're with friends over the weekend, and some of these same emotions might come back up.
Well, exactly. Some parents shared, actually, they were there yesterday, that still now, their 7-year-old has nightmares still going on. They don't want to stay alone in a closed room. They're actually, developing some, claustrophobia, or they just certainly have a emotional and psychological impact, and give again also the trust in adults. They've just started, and it occurs in elementary level. They just started their schooling, and this is how they're treated. So imagine the impact it will have on us, making sure that they could trust the adults that in front of the class, and the stress and emotional distress that could occur also. That will certainly have an impact on their concentration, on their ability to learn, to retain information. So, and then we call on them for not being concentrated enough. Imagine the fear, going every day to school, and if so happens that either in the situation there's a something that bothers you, you don't have a benevolent adults to go to that you can trust.
Bianca Nugent, appreciate you taking the time and explaining this to us this morning. We're going to keep asking questions, but thank you for being with us.
Well, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Bianca Nugent, they're president of the Coalition of Parents and Children with Special Needs. The Liberal opposition at the National Assembly has been pushing the government to look closely at how seclusion rooms are being used. It's also presented a private member's bill, Bill 398, on the rights of students with special needs. Elizabeth Prass is the Liberal MNA for Darcy McGee, opposition critic for persons living with a disability or with autism spectrum disorder, and she joins us on the line. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, I'm curious to find out some of your reactions to the findings of this survey carried out by these organizations.
Well, I think what's sad that comes out the most is that this practice is more common than we might think. And if we look at some of the results in the survey, 43% of the parents surveyed say that their child is being put in a seclusion room 43 times a week. 43% of them are saying that their child is in a seclusion room multiple times a week.
Okay.
And 10 of them say that their child is in a seclusion room multiple times a day. So clearly, this is not the goal of those rooms. Those rooms are there to calm children down when they're feeling overwhelmed, when they're having overwhelmed sensory or whatnot. It's there to calm them down. It's not supposed to be used to punish them when the teacher can't deal with them and they have too much going on in their classroom because they don't have any support staff to help them deal with this one child. So clearly, the goal of the room is not the one that's being interpreted by teachers and the staff.
What's your party been trying to do to get the government to pay attention to this issue?
Yeah, well, in last spring, myself and my colleague Marwa Risky, who's our critic for education, asked that the one of the committees, permanent committees at the National Assembly, take on this mandate to further investigate what's going on, to speak to experts, to speak to advocacy groups, to really understand what's going on and how we can better frame the use of these rooms. And unfortunately, the government very quickly rejected that, even though at the time there were a few stories in the media about the abuse of these rooms and children being traumatized, parents not even being informed that this was happening. So clearly there was a need to see what's going on, and unfortunately the government didn't agree with us.
What is needed in school so that children with special needs are given the support that they need to be successful when they head to class?
Yeah, well, I'm the mom of a little boy who's on this autism spectrum, and what they need, there's a few things. Multidisciplinary teams are necessary to evaluate when a child needs to be put in a seclusion room to calm themselves down, to determine if the child is, if there are other practices that can be used to calm them down, to deal with them, or if the seclusion room is really the choice. Teachers don't have the training to be able to identify when these rooms should be used and how they should be used. They don't have the support staff around them to be able to identify when the child is having a certain moment where they need these rooms or not. So really, the teacher is being thrown into a classroom with all of these students. They say, hey, by the way, when a child is overwhelmed, or maybe you're overwhelmed, there's a seclusion room in the hallway that you can send them to. And so the teachers are not given the proper tools and the proper support to really understand the mechanism of the seclusion room and how to recognize when a child needs other practices to be able to calm them down, or the seclusion room. So it's really a lack of training. It's a lack of multidisciplinary teams. And we need an education system where all children can blossom to their full potential. This government says that student success is its priority. Well, we want to see that apply to all students, because what we're seeing is if you have a child with special needs, that doesn't apply to you. Then your child is more of a burden than they are a success story. And we want to see that change.
How does the government do that? Knowing that the limitations of the school system right now, knowing that resources are stretched thin and that there are many issues plaguing Quebec's education system right now.
Certainly. Well, one of them is my colleague, Westmount Saint Louis MNA, Jennifer Macaron, deposited Private Bill 398, which entrenches the right for every child to an education, regardless of if they have special needs or not. Children with special needs will grow up to contribute to society, to have jobs, to be a taxpayer, if at a young age we give them the ability and the tools to be able to function within their reality. And we're not seeing that now. We're seeing, because there's not enough teachers in our schools, we're seeing special educators excuse me, and speech therapists being put into teacher positions because there's not enough teachers. And so the children that they're supposed to be helping and supporting don't have that support anymore. So clearly lost sight of the needs and the necessities of special needs students.
Elizabeth Prass, we appreciate your time and you taking the time to speak with us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You as well. Elizabeth Prass, our Liberal MNA for Darcy McGee, opposition critic for persons living with a disability or with an autism spectrum disorder. Yesterday, during question period, Education Minister Bernard Drinville did not address specifically the issue of seclusion rooms, but he said the department has increased its budget to help students with special needs and has created 700 special classes in the past 5 years and added staff to help those students.